And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And you know, a few years ago, I had a coworker who had accused me of doing something uh, problematic enough that the cops showed up. Turns out, I had done nothing. I'd done nothing wrong. Verifiably, nothing was wrong. Okay, but I still had to deal with the cops and fill out a bunch of paperwork. It sucked. And this nagged at me for years before I was finally able to forgive my coworker and move on. Okay. And I've talked about in the past on streams and maybe even on this podcast, I don't remember now, about issues I've been having with a contractor and how much it's driving me nuts. Okay. It's eating me up inside. And so I got thinking about the questions like, have you ever found it hard to let go of a grudge? Right? Have you ever thought about forgiveness and thought, dang, this is hard? And what ends up happening to you when you don't forgive? Okay? Now, forgiveness doesn't mean you're condoning an action, okay? Doesn't mean that you are you even necessarily forget that you had been hurt, right? But it's a letting go of that, some of that hurt inside, okay? Right? The idea is that forgiveness in a lot of ways is an internal thing, okay? And it's a benefit for you, and it has very little to do with the other person in a lot of ways, okay? And it's not easy, okay? And right now, I'm struggling with this right now, right? Forgiveness is hard, and it's easy to get sucked into things like, well, the the pain, right? Sometimes literal physical pain, right? Sometimes it's just the emotional pain of having been betrayed or that loss of trust or any number of other things, and it's really easy to want to hang on to that pain and just squeeze it till it becomes a diamond of hatred. And you know that's easy to do, right? And it's really easy to become bitter because of that, right? Because what happens what happens when you're hurt, right? And we'll sort of focus on the physical stuff, but again, this could be, or focus on the emotional, this could be physical too in some ways, right? If someone rams your car, for example, right? And now you're end up with pain and you have to replace your car and there's all sorts of these issues, right? And it's really easy to want to hang on to that. And what does that do to you? Right? What does that do to your emotions? What does that do to how you interact with other people? Right? How does holding on to that resentment uh, hurts you, really? Right? It doesn't benefit you that much in a lot of ways, right? Because what ends up happening? You end up with this emotional stress. Uh, Often you end up, uh, just uptight. It's hard to trust other people, which then starts closing you off to the people around you, right? Hanging on to all of this anger and resentment and stuff does doesn't do anybody any good, right? So so here's the deal. Here's what I've been dealing with. Okay. Now, as I said, I've been dealing with this contractor. Now, my dad died, it was almost 3 years ago now, and it was a huge pain to get his house cleaned out and all of this stuff because he was a little bit of a hoarder and he lived in that house for she's 40 something years, okay? 30 something. It was a long time. See, we moved in there when I was in second grade, so that would have made it, yeah, I'd have been 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. Yeah, so like 40 years, right? It'd been there forever. Okay, we got the house cleaned out, but it was a disaster, okay? My dad had no sense of smell and didn't realize how badly the house smelled of dog. A lot of the floors were destroyed, either by the dogs just tearing up the floor. Like, there were parts of the kitchen where the linoleum had been scratched through down to the underfloor. The carpet had big holes in it where the dogs had scratched holes in. A lot of times, if they didn't get out in time, oh yeah, they had their favorite spot to mess on the carpet. And that whole area was just nasty, okay? All right, so if I wanted to do something with this house, either sell it or rent it or something, we knew the house was going to take a massive overhaul, okay? Renovations galore. Well, we had been working with a contractor locally to redo the stucco on our house, and he did a great job. He was great to work with. He and my wife started talking and realized this was a great opportunity for both of us. See, what would happen is we were looking at a job starting in January. This was 18, 20 months ago, something like that. And it was great for them because in winter, a lot of the construction work goes away because it's hard to do construction in winter, okay? So they were looking at a really dead time in their schedule. And we were looking at working with a local contractor who was significantly less expensive than working with local contractors in Denver, okay? And this was a great opportunity for both of us, okay? And they went to work, and we took out a loan. It was like $150 something thousand to pay for renovations, and obviously to pay the contractor and all this stuff, and paid the half down so they can get started, buy materials, all of that stuff. And they went up to the house and they demoed everything. It was great. They got all of that nasty, smelly, horrific carpet out. They took out this horrible linoleum, right? All of this stuff. It was bad, and they did a great job of doing that. And then they started doing some of the renovations, right? A lot of the doors in the houses, they're wood doors, and they're fairly nice doors, but dog claw marks all over them, right? As the dogs would scratch at the doors and stuff. So they did a great job, sanding down the doors, restaining them. They looked amazing. They got some great color, worked out all the stuff. Okay, great. Well, they had some issues. At least this is the claim, which I'm still inclined to believe for now, that they were having some issues here. So they came back. They had to deal with some jobs here. So that put our project on hold a little bit. But okay, we were still in frequent communication. And eventually, after a little bit longer than we were expecting, they were able to go back up. Now, we had budgeted about 6 months. The project was supposed to take 3 months. We budgeted for 6 so that we could pay the mortgage, right? Pay for this home improvement loan, and then and have some buffer. And then what the plan is then to, when they were done, is to rent out the house, which would then pay the mortgage, give us some extra money to squirrel away for repairs and stuff when they came up, and then also help pay tuition for my kids who are in college. Okay. Well, 6 months became 9, it became 12, it became 15, right? And eventually, they went back up a little bit later. They did a little bit of work. And then they stopped. They kind of started to blow us off. My wife would text and say, "Hey, when are you heading back up?" So, "Oh yeah, we're going up this weekend or next weekend or something like that." And we heard nothing. Right? Obviously, the work wasn't done. We were up again in December. They hadn't done anything for 6 months. And in fact, they still had left windows open and stuff from when they had been there over the summer. And I'm lucky none of the pipes burst because they left windows open in the middle of a Colorado winter. Okay. And the heat was off. So, it wasn't great. And then, they just stopped responding to everything. Now their emails bounce. They've ghosted us, basically. But what made it worse is, as we were part of this, we had ended up paying them an advance on the end of the contract, because of some of the issues that were going on. And now they've ghosted us, and they haven't finished the job, leaving us now to go do it. I've talked about this on stream a little bit. I've had to cancel streams, and I'm just not being able to put out videos and stuff, music for gaming, because I'm having to go up to Denver now, and try to do the renovations myself, because I'm out $75,000 and I can't afford to hire another contractor to finish the job. Okay, right? These are, and this is, we're watching our finances just dwindle away as we're continuing, because we have to keep paying the loan, right? Interest never sleeps. The loan doesn't stop just because it's inconvenient. And I do still have 3 kids in college. So yeah, this was not something we needed right now. And man, I am having a heck of a time forgiving them. Okay. Because I'm hanging on to all of this. It's easy for me to want to sit and start to dwell on punishments and getting even, and all of this, and it's tough. It makes it hard for me to move past this. Okay. And yeah, I have every right to be upset. Okay. I mean, they've basically scammed us for $75,000, right? Now they did a lot of the hard work, and I'm grateful for the work that they've done. They just didn't finish the job. And I said, it's hard for me, because I said, I'll go up there and I've got to go up there again this weekend. And, we're doing flooring, and we were doing a bunch of sanding and stuff for prep and all this stuff for painting last weekend or a couple weekends ago. And my wife's been up there for about 3 weeks with a couple of breaks. She's been doing stuff as I've been here, because I still have a job, so I've been here working, right? And it's hard, because I end up dwelling on this, and it's beginning to affect my calm. Okay, it's not great, right? But forgiveness is actually it's really awesome when you get to it, and this is something I'm trying to get to, right? Now, because hey, what is forgiveness? What's involved in forgiving? Now, remember, forgiveness is not condoning the wrong, right? I'm not saying it was okay for him to scam me like this, okay? But what I'm saying is, not forgiving isn't affecting him at all, right? My contractor doesn't care. I mean, maybe he does, but he's not around. He's not answering calls. He may never see me again, right? But for me, I'm all tied up in knots because of this, right? And forgiveness, it happens in a number of steps, right? Obviously, you have to acknowledge that, yeah, you're in pain in some way or other, okay? That's an important step. And then you have to choose to forgive, okay? And sometimes that part seems easy, right? So, oh, yes, I will choose to forgive this person for whatever they've done, right? But sometimes even choosing to forgive is hard. But then the actual act of letting go of all of that angst and resentment and pain, and it's not easy, okay? This is a hard thing to do. And I'm not going to pretend it's not hard, okay? Sure, there are some things that it's easy. Okay, so you didn't quite get it right. You got shorted on your change when you bought something. Okay, that sucks. Okay, usually it's a few cents, not that big a deal. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. It's not that big a deal. You'll never see them again. Who cares, right? But on the other hand, this is a huge hurt for me and my family. So yeah, this is hard. Now, there are ways of cultivating forgiveness, I guess, if you want to think of it that way, right? some of it is empathy, right? And now, in the case of somebody cutting you off in traffic, okay, you could start inventing backstories. Maybe they're in a hurry because their their wife is pregnant and in labor in the back, and they've got to get to the hospital. They just found out their kid was hurt. You don't know any of that stuff. Maybe they're just a jerk, but none of that really matters because you're not dealing with them directly, right? But having some empathy for, yeah, somebody screwed up. Are you perfect? No. Are they perfect? Of course not. Let's maybe start accepting some of that. Accepting that, hey, we're not perfect. Okay? Yeah, we can start looking at things in perspective, okay? And sometimes that's hard. Okay, somebody cuts you off in traffic. The perspective could be fairly easy. Okay, they just cut me off in traffic. It's not like they broke into my house or killed my cat or whatever, okay? Right? None of that happened. Let's keep things in perspective, all right? In this case, yeah, I got taken for a year's salary. This is not easy here, okay, to deal with. But on the other hand, I have the financial stability that we've been able to deal with it to some extent, okay? We're not forced out of our home because of it. We're not, eating the putty out of the windows, as my dad used to say, right? There is some perspective there that can really help and can help you realize maybe that, yeah, this sucked, but what is it doing to me? And sometimes it's a perspective switch from I'm going to focus on all of the things they've done to me, and I'm going to start counting the ways I want to punish them, to changing a perspective to, okay, this happened. I'm not going to deny this happened, but let's move on. Okay? And I'm not saying it's easy, but sometimes it does take that shift, that intentional shift in thinking of, this sucked, but I'm going to move past it, right? It's a personal motto, and it's been very hard for me to live up to a lot recently, but it's a personal motto for my life. There's something I learned from my dad when he was dealing with cancer, right? He was just coming out of, I was picking him up from surgery after he had a procedure to deal with his cancer. He had a couple of cancers, and I can't remember exactly which one this was. This might have been the prostate cancer. But he was sitting there. I was watching this parade of nurses as they kept coming into the room, telling him how great it was to have him on the floor, and because he was regaling them with jokes from when he was a cop, and he dealt with a lot of people in a lot of hospitals, and the nurses were cracking up, and it was great. And we were talking about it, and again, it was one of those, you can choose to be happy or choose to be not, right? But the lesson I took from it is that there's no situation so bad that complaining about it won't make it worse. Because if you're going to just sit and complain about it or whine about it, you're just focusing on the problem and not focusing on the solution, okay? And that's part of the issue that comes in with forgiveness. If all you're doing is focusing on how you've been hurt, you never get to the point where you can focus on healing, okay? And that takes, in some ways, some self-compassion, maybe is one thing. One way to look at it is having compassion for yourself. Is, yes, you were hurt. There's no denying that. Do you want to keep being hurt, or do you want to move on, right? And there was a story. This one always touches me when I think about it. This was a story, I think it was in Utah, and I don't remember exactly the date. It was a while ago. But these kids, I think they were in high school, something like that, and they thought it would be really fun to take a frozen turkey and go to a footbridge that went over a highway and chuck this frozen turkey at a car as it was going by, because this is apparently fun. All right? Don't do this. It's stupid. Well, what happened is they did throw it and they did hit a car, and the turkey went through the windshield and it hit this driver, and this woman crashed. Her injuries were so extensive, she was permanently blinded. Okay. Now, this is not good for anybody in this situation. Okay, the kids were arrested. She's of course now blinded for life, and has of course all these medical bills and all that stuff. But she made the choice of, rather than hold on to that resentment and that hurt and that anger for these teens, she did the opposite. She forgave them. She extended, I guess love is the right word, but she extended empathy and caring for these kids. And yes, the kids still had legal consequences. Okay, I think they did still end up going to jail for a little while, but it wasn't as extensive, and because of her attitude, these kids actually had true remorse for their crime. Okay, let's call it what it is. But she didn't continue to feel that hurt and that pain and that all that rancor that would have just continued to eat her up inside. Okay, she let that go. She reached out and forgave, right? And then of course you can go to all the scriptural accounts of Christ and all of those things, right? But there are a lot of these types of stories where you realize that I'm not helping myself by hanging on to all of this pain, right? All of this hurt, this resentment, this just gnawing, just it hurts, right? All these negative emotional gobbledygook of a monster that just eats you up inside, right? But what happens when you forgive, right? You start to let go of that. You start to heal, right? I mean, I had issues with my mom, okay? And I think I've talked about them in some previous podcasts, but the long and the short of it is I never felt like I was part of the family, okay? Now, part of that is that my parents were divorced. My sister went with my mom. I stayed with my dad. And mom remarried and had 2 more kids, okay? But I never really felt like I was part of the family, and there were some other issues, okay? It took me a while to really get past that. And it also took a year of therapy, right? To get past that, and then some grief at losing both her and my dad, right? But embracing that forgiveness, even when, in the case of my mom, she's not here, she's not on earth anymore for me to actually express that forgiveness. But I get the benefits of emotional healing, right? I can let that go. I can be in a better headspace, right? I can have peace, I suppose, would be the word for it. I can have this calm, right? It was hard when I realized how much this was eating me up inside, right? Well, I'm still trying to deal with that with my contractor, and I know all of these benefits, right? I know the peace, I know the improved well-being of forgiving, right? The idea that if I can let go of all that garbage, I could focus on me, right? I can choose to get back to a healthy weight. I can decide to try new things, right? I can get past that, and I can focus on being a better me rather than spending so much of my mental energies just crushing that nugget of hate into or nugget of resentment into a diamond of hate, right? It just doesn't help anybody, right? And by letting some of this go, I know I have a better relationship with my wife. I have a better relationship with the people I work with. Um, and by letting some of that go, I don't have to deal with the continual. Oh, somebody says something, and it just adds to that. All right, add to this pool of rancor that lives inside. So right, that are just emotional knot of garbage. Right. It's it's great. Now again, I would love to be able to say, that, you know, I have totally forgiven my contractor and this is wonderful. Okay. And I'm a wonderful, amazing person because of it. I am not there yet. Okay. I it's something I want to be. I've noticed it like when I was up working on the house this last weekend. There was just there's a lot to do. I was doing some plumbing. I was doing right. We were dealing with just a bunch of stuff. We're looking at just how much do we have to spend on extra materials because I hadn't purchased enough to actually finish the job. We had to buy appliances that we were told had been purchased, but actually apparently hadn't been. So now we had to go buy them. Uh, so we're having to spend a lot of money that we don't. We're diving into this. What little of my savings is left, right? Or what our savings account is shrinking rapidly. Okay, and it was easy to sit there at any time something came up. It's like they left the house expecting to come back, and so they left a lot of stuff up there, um, blankets and pillows and some kids' toys, right? Because his wife and daughter had come up with them and were staying in some of the rooms that they had already done some of the work on. Like the upstairs bedrooms were mostly done, and so there's a lot of that stuff there. And we had to pack all of that stuff up so we can get it out of the house. And it's easy every time I see that to grumble and complain. And it's like, yeah, they can have it back when they cut us a check for $75,000, right? It's easy for me to dwell on that. And I did, and I do, and it sucks. Okay? Because it just eats all of this mental and emotional energy. It's not great. Okay? And I know that if I can get past that and get to the point where I can actually forgive him, it's going to be a huge benefit for me. Okay? I'm not there yet. I want to be there. I know it's going to be great once I finally get there. But I'm not there. Okay? But I know forgiveness is a choice, and it's one that I'm trying to make because it is liberating, right? To actually let go of all of that emotional garbage and forgive. You're the one that benefits. I know I'm going to be the one that benefits when I can get all this forgiveness stuff going and worked through, right? I know this because he'll never know. More likely than not said, I will never see him again. Okay? But I will be the one that benefits it. I will be the one who can be free from all of that crap, right? Now, again, I'm not going to say it's easy, but I will encourage you to reflect on your own experiences with stuff like this, right? Think about some of those things. Are you still nurturing that pain and resentment when instead you could be taking steps towards forgiveness and healing yourself? And you know, there are ways you can do that. I've talked about a few of them um, at a high level. Sometimes just working it out in a journal can help. Um, Sometimes you do need professional help, right? As I said, I didn't realize how much um, my mom's attitude towards me over my childhood and even into my adult life, how much that was still hurting. And yeah, so I had to work with a therapist, and it was so liberating, really. It was so great once I had a breakthrough and realized, yeah, no, I'm done with this. I'm good with this. We can go. And so yeah, if you need professional help, don't be afraid to get it. Okay? And take those steps. And sometimes, yeah, you do need to talk with somebody. Sometimes it just takes a good friend, or if you've got a religious leader, right? You know, a minister, or a bishop, or um, somebody like that that you can really talk to and work through those emotions. Don't be afraid to do that, because forgiveness is awesome when you get it done. Like I said, it's not about forgetting what happened, okay? But it's moving beyond it so that it's no longer hurting you inside. Like the woman I talked about earlier, the fact that she forgave did not restore her sight, okay? But she didn't lose uh, her inner peace, I guess, along with her sight, right? And that's something said, I'm working on it. It's There are times it will be hard. It's hard for me. There are things that will be hard for you, but work through it because it is awesome. Okay. And just want to close again with what I say at the end of every episode: be excellent to each other, and that includes being excellent to yourself. And often that means forgiving others for their transgressions so that you can be free to move on. And until next time, again, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static, signing off.